The antique shop appeared on Maple Street on a Tuesday, which was the first impossible thing. I'd lived in this neighborhood for 8 years, walked past that corner every single day on my way to work, and I would have sworn on my life that the building had been vacant since the hardware store closed in 2019. But there it was, weathered sign hanging above the door reading Holloway's Curiosities, Est 1847. Windows filled with dusty objects I couldn't quite make out. A handwritten note taped to the glass, open by appointment and accident. I'm not superstitious. I'm a data analyst. I deal in spreadsheets and statistical models and quantifiable reality. But I stopped walking, stared at that shop, felt something pull at me, like a fishhook lodged somewhere behind my sternum. My name is Marcus Webb. I'm 36 years old, I have a small apartment, a decent job, and a life that could generously be described as fine. No wife, no kids, no passionate hobbies or burning ambitions, just existence, day after day, comfortable and suffocating in equal measure. I should have kept walking, should have gone to work, filed my reports, eaten lunch at my desk, gone home to my empty apartment. That's what I did every other day. Instead, I crossed the street and tried the door. It opened. The interior was exactly what you'd expect from an antique shop that allegedly dated back to 1847. Dark wood everywhere, shelves crammed with objects from a dozen different eras, pocket watches and porcelain dolls and leather-bound books, oil paintings and gilded frames, a taxidermied owl staring at me from atop a filing cabinet. The air smelled like old paper and furniture polish and something else I couldn't identify. Something almost electric. "Hello?" I called out. No response. The shop appeared empty. I should have left. Instead, I walked deeper inside, weaving between display cases and furniture that probably cost more than my car. Everything was labeled with small tags tied with string, not prices, descriptions. Music box, Vienna, 1892. Silver cigarette case, engraved, owner unknown. Photograph, family portrait, circa 1920. At the back of the shop, on a table by itself, sat a mirror. It was old, Victorian maybe. The frame was tarnished silver, ornate with vines and flowers worked into the metal. The glass itself was cloudy, like it had been submerged in water for years. The tag hanging from it read, "Mirror of Consequence, handle with extreme care." I reached out to touch it. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." I spun around. An old woman stood behind the counter. I hadn't heard her approach. She was small, probably in her 80s, with white hair pulled back in a bun and eyes that were an unsettling shade of gray. She wore a cardigan despite the warmth of the shop, and regarded me with an expression somewhere between amusement and concern. "Sorry," I said. "The door was open. I didn't mean to." "The door is always open when it needs to be." She moved around the counter with surprising agility. "You're here for a reason. They always are." "They?" "The ones who can see the shop. It's not visible to everyone, you understand, only to those who need something, or those about to make a choice." I laughed. Couldn't help it. "That's a good sales pitch. Very mysterious." She didn't smile. "I don't need sales pitches, Mr. Webb. I don't need sales at all. The shop provides what people need. Sometimes they pay, sometimes they don't. The currency isn't always money." "How do you know my name?" "I know a great many things. For instance, I know you've been standing at a crossroads for 3 years now, ever since Emily left, ever since you decided it was safer to stop trying than to risk being hurt again." My throat went tight. Emily. I hadn't heard her name spoken aloud in months. We'd been engaged. She'd left 2 weeks before the wedding, said she couldn't marry someone who was emotionally unavailable, who treated life like something to be endured rather than lived. "That's none of your business," I said. "No," the woman agreed, "it isn't, but the mirror is."
She gestured to the Victorian mirror I'd been about to touch. "Do you know what a mirror of consequence is?" "No." "It shows you what your life would look like if you'd made different choices, all the branching paths you didn't take, the possibilities you abandoned." She stepped closer. "It's dangerous. Most people who look into it are destroyed by what they see, paralyzed by regret, driven mad by the weight of what might have been." "Then why keep it in your shop?" "Because occasionally, very occasionally, someone looks into it and makes a different choice, sees what they need to see, changes their trajectory." She studied me carefully. "I think you might be one of those people, or you might not. There's only one way to find out." "This is insane." "Yes," she said simply, "it is. You can leave now, go back to your apartment, your spreadsheets, your safe, small life, or you can look into the mirror and see what you've been running from." I should have left. Any rational person would have left. But I was tired, so tired of being careful, of playing it safe, of waking up every morning in my identical apartment, living my identical life, and feeling nothing but a vague, constant ache. "If I look," I said slowly, "what happens? You see, and then you choose. That's all." I walked to the mirror, stood in front of it. My reflection was there, but distorted by the cloudy glass. I looked older somehow, grayer. "What do I do?" "Touch the frame. Focus on a moment, a choice. The mirror will show you the rest." I reached out. The silver was cold under my fingers, and the moment I made contact, the world lurched. The glass cleared, and I saw. I saw myself at 28, standing in Emily's apartment. She was crying, asking me to open up, to let her in, to stop treating our relationship like a project to be managed. I saw myself do what I'd done that night, deflect, rationalize, pull away, and then the image shifted. I saw what would have happened if I'd made a different choice, if I'd been honest, told her I was scared, that I didn't know how to be vulnerable, because vulnerability meant pain, and I'd spent my whole life avoiding pain. I saw her face soften, saw us work through it, saw the wedding happen, saw a house, 2 kids, a life that was messy and complicated and full. The mirror shifted again. I saw myself at 32, at my father's funeral, standing apart from my family, controlled and distant, not crying because crying was weakness. And then I saw the alternate path, saw myself break down, saw my sister hold me, saw my mother whisper that it was okay to grieve, saw the relationships that would have deepened if I'd let myself be human. Again, another shift. I saw myself just last month. A woman at a coffee shop had smiled at me. We'd talked briefly. She'd written her number on a napkin. I'd thrown it away on my way out the door because what was the point? But in the mirror, I saw myself keep it, call her, go on a date, feel something stir in my chest that I'd thought was dead. The images came faster now. A cascade of moments, of choices, of all the times I'd chosen safety over risk, isolation over connection, control over chaos. And the cumulative weight of it crushed me. I was crying. I don't remember when I started, but tears were streaming down my face and I couldn't breathe, and all I could see were the 1,000 different versions of my life that could have been if I'd just been brave enough to try. "Enough," the old woman's voice cut through the visions. She pulled my hand away from the mirror. The glass went cloudy again. The shop snapped back into focus. I sank to the floor, back against the wall, shaking. "I told you it was dangerous," she said, not unkindly. "Those lives, those possibilities, they're gone. I can't get them back." "No, you can't." She sat down beside me with a small grunt. The past is fixed. The choices you've already made have already been made. You can't undo them. Then what's the point? Why show me this? Because the future isn't fixed. You still have choices ahead of you, and now you know the cost of always choosing safety, always choosing fear. I wiped my face with my sleeve. What am I supposed to do with this? That's entirely up to you. Some people who look in that mirror go home and change nothing. They fold the weight of their regrets into themselves and carry it until they die. Others, she shrugged, others decide that the pain of remaining the same is worse than the risk of changing. You said there's a price for the things in your shop. There is. What's the price for this, for looking in the mirror? She smiled then, a small, sad smile. You've already paid it. The price is knowing. You can't unknow what you've seen, can't unsee those other lives. That knowledge will be with you forever. What you do with it is up to you. I stood on shaking legs. The shop felt smaller somehow, more oppressive. I needed air, needed to think. Thank you, I said. I think. Don't thank me yet. You might curse me in the months ahead. The truth is rarely comfortable. I walked to the door, paused with my hand on the handle. Will I be able to find this place again? If you need to, but I don't think you will. I stepped out onto Maple Street. The morning was bright and cold. People were walking past, going about their lives, oblivious. I turned to look back at the shop. It was gone. In its place was the same vacant building that had been there for the past 3 years. Boarded windows, faded for lease sign. No antique shop, no Holloway's Curiosities. But my face was still wet with tears, and the weight of what I'd seen sat heavy in my chest. I went to work, sat at my desk, opened my spreadsheets, stared at numbers that suddenly seemed meaningless. At lunch, instead of eating at my desk, I went to the coffee shop 3 blocks away, the one where the woman had given me her number last month. She wasn't there. Of course she wasn't. That chance was gone. I'd thrown it away. But there was someone else, a guy about my age, sitting alone, reading a book. He looked up as I walked past, caught my eye, smiled. In the old version of myself, the one from this morning, I would have looked away, gotten my coffee, gone back to my desk. Instead, I stopped. Good book? I asked. He looked surprised, then pleased. Yeah, actually. You read Murakami? No, never have.
He should. He writes about people who were lost, trying to find their way back to themselves. He gestured to the empty chair across from him. I'm David, by the way. Marcus. I sat down. We talked for 40 minutes about books and music and the strange experience of being in your 30s and feeling like you haven't quite figured out how to be a person yet. He was funny, self-deprecating, easy to talk to. When I finally checked my watch and realized I needed to get back to work, he said, "We should do this again, if you want." The old me would have made an excuse, would have kept it vague and non-committal and let it fade away. "I'd like that," I said. "Can I get your number?" He smiled, wrote it on a napkin, handed it to me. I kept the napkin. That evening, instead of going straight home to my apartment, I called my sister. We hadn't spoken in 2 months. The conversation was awkward at first, stilted, but I pushed through it. "How are Mom and the kids?" I asked. "They're good. Mom asks about you. The kids barely remember you exist." It stung, but it was fair. "I'm sorry. I've been distant." "Yeah, you have." A pause. "Why are you calling, Marcus?" "Because I'm tired of being distant. I'm tired of standing on the sidelines of my own life." "Okay, what does that mean?" "It means I want to come to dinner this weekend, if that's okay. I want to see the kids. I want to be present, actually present, not just physically there." Another pause, longer.
I'd like that. They'd like that. But Marcus, if you're going to do this, you have to actually do it, not just show up once and then disappear again. I know. I'm going to try. Really try. Okay, Saturday at 6? I'll be there. I hung up and sat on my couch, staring at my apartment. It was clean, organized, completely impersonal, like a hotel room where someone had been living for 8 years. The mirror had shown me lives I'd never lived, choices I couldn't remake. But it had also shown me something else, the pattern, the endless cycle of choosing fear over hope, safety over risk, isolation over connection. I couldn't change the past, but I could choose differently going forward. Over the next few months, I did. I texted David. We got coffee again, then dinner. Then I kissed him outside his apartment building and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Possibility. I went to my sister's for dinner, played with my niece and nephew, had an actual conversation with my mother that didn't feel like performing a role. It was uncomfortable. I was bad at it, but I kept showing up. I started therapy, told a stranger about Emily, about my father, about the way I'd spent my entire adult life building walls and calling it stability. She listened and asked questions and didn't judge. I quit my job, found a new one that paid less but mattered more, started working at a nonprofit that helped veterans transition to civilian life. It was harder, more emotionally demanding, but I went home each day feeling like I'd done something real. I adopted a dog, a scraggly mutt from the shelter who'd been there for 8 months because he was too much work. He was anxious and needy and forced me to adjust my carefully controlled schedule. I named him Gatsby because David had gotten me into Murakami and I'd branched out to other authors I'd always meant to read. 6 months after the antique shop appeared and disappeared, I walked past that corner again. The building was still vacant, still boarded up, no sign that Holloway's Curiosities had ever existed. But sometimes, when the light hit the windows just right, I thought I could see something inside, a glimmer, a suggestion of shelves and objects, and an old woman waiting for the next person who needed to see the truth. I never went looking for it again. Didn't need to. The mirror had shown me what I needed to see, that every day is a choice, that regret isn't about the past, it's about the future you're afraid to build, that the safest life is often the smallest one. I still thought about the other lives sometimes, the one where Emily and I made it work, where I had kids and a house in the suburbs. I grieved those possibilities, probably always would. But I also had this life, the one I was building day by day, choice by choice, the one where David and I were planning to move in together, where my niece drew me pictures she insisted I hang on my fridge, where Gatsby slept at the foot of my bed and woke me up too early every morning, where I went to work and felt like what I did mattered. It wasn't perfect. It was messy and complicated and sometimes overwhelming, but it was real and it was mine. And for the first time in my adult life, I was actually living it. My name is Marcus Webb. I'm 37 years old. I looked into a mirror that showed me all my regrets, all my failures, all the lives I'd never live. And it saved me. Not because it gave me those lives back, but because it showed me the cost of always choosing fear. Some people say you can't change, that by your mid-30s you are who you are and that's it. Your patterns are set. Your personality is fixed. Those people are wrong. You can change, but it takes courage. It takes looking at the ugliest parts of yourself and deciding they don't have to define you anymore. It takes standing at the crossroads and for once choosing the uncertain path instead of the safe one. I don't know if the antique shop was real, if the mirror was magic or metaphor or grief-induced hallucination. In a way, it doesn't matter. What matters is that I looked, I saw, and I chose differently. And every morning when I wake up, with David beside me, with Gatsby snoring on the floor, with a day ahead of me that could be anything, I choose differently again. That's all life is, really. A series of choices, a collection of moments where you decide who you want to be. I'm choosing courage now, choosing connection, choosing to feel things even when feeling hurts. I'm choosing to live. And that makes all the difference.